She never thought she'd be in the same room with him again. Pam Bondi adjusted the lapel of her blazer with the same calm resolve she once summoned to face down a hurricane in the courtroom. The air was cold, artificial, like a vault trying to freeze the truth. She looked across the courtroom, her gaze falling on the man sitting still but rigid, as though trying to shrink into his expensive suit. Sean Diddy Combs was no longer the larger-than-life mogul with champagne in one hand and the world in the other. He looked diminished. Not by age, not by scandal, but by truth coming to collect its due. It had taken years, decades, for this moment to arrive. Years of sealed files, paid-off witnesses, and rumors whispered in the shadows of studios and clubs. But today wasn't about rumors. It was about something found, something solid. Something hidden. Pam stood, cleared her throat, and approached the bench. The courtroom, packed with media and silent observers, didn't move. Everyone knew what this moment meant. Everyone had heard the rumors. But none had heard the story from her mouth. Not until now. She looked at the jury, ordinary people who probably danced to his music at weddings, birthdays, or maybe alone in their kitchens. They deserved to know. And maybe, just maybe, they deserved to be reminded of the cost of silence. It started 2 years ago, she began, with a young woman named Celeste. There was a stir in the gallery. That name hadn't been public yet. Celeste had dreams like any of us when we were young. She believed that talent and hard work could take her places. And she believed the promises made to her by a powerful man. Pam paused, her voice thickening slightly, not from emotion, but from restraint. The kind of restraint that comes from keeping pain from boiling over. She was 17. The number hit like a gavel. She was invited to a party, Pam continued, one of the many held in that mansion in the hills. And she was told she'd get to record with the best producers in the industry. That she'd finally make her mark. Another pause. What happened to her in that house destroyed her voice. Not just her singing voice. Her whole sense of who she was. But she wasn't alone. We found others. 5. Then 10. Some spoke. Some couldn't. But all led us to one place. She turned, pointed at the exhibit. That basement. Diddy's lawyer rose to object. The judge waved him down. Everyone had agreed this evidence could be presented. There would be no more games. We found what we weren't supposed to, Pam said, almost whispering now. Rooms within rooms. Soundproofing deeper than any studio required. Locks not on the outside, but inside, keeping people in, not out. One juror's hand trembled. Another pulled her cardigan closer around her shoulders. Diddy didn't look up. There were tapes, Pam continued. Not songs. Not performances. Surveillance. Hundreds of hours. Of women. Of boys. Of transactions not in cash, but in silence. She let the words hang like smoke. The details will come out as the trial proceeds. But I ask you to think about something very simple. We all want justice to be clean. We want villains to look like monsters and heroes to be spotless. But life isn't that tidy. She looked straight at the oldest juror, a black grandfather with silver hair and eyes that had seen too much history. Sometimes the ones we dance to are the ones we should have run from. The courtroom was utterly silent. Later, as she stepped down and walked back to her seat, Pam passed Diddy's table. She didn't look at him, but she felt his stare, like heat on her skin. Not rage. Not guilt. Fear. Not of jail. But of no longer being untouchable. That fear would feed the next day's headlines. In the days that followed, the media feasted. But for Pam, the flash of cameras meant nothing compared to the late-night phone calls from survivors. Some still young. Some now old. All finally heard. She didn't do it for the spotlight. She did it for the silence that lasted too long. One evening, after court ended early, she found herself walking alone through a part of the city she rarely visited anymore. Murals covered the walls, some of famous musicians, including Diddy in younger years, arms raised to a crowd of ghosts. She stopped at one. There was a sticker pasted over the bottom corner. It read, in black marker, "We knew. We didn't listen." Pam stared at it. She had once admired him too. had defended artists like him when people accused them of being too wild, too dark, too dangerous. But maybe that's why the justice system needed to be constantly challenged, not because it always failed, but because it too often flattered power. That night, she visited Celeste. The girl, now a woman, lived quietly in a rehab facility in New Mexico. Her eyes still carried the storm, but her voice, soft and musical, had returned, even if just to say thank you. Pam didn't stay long. There were still court dates to attend, motions to file, witnesses to protect. But she needed that moment to remind herself that justice wasn't a performance, it was a promise. Weeks later, as the jury delivered its verdict, Pam didn't cheer or cry. She just listened. Guilty. She closed her eyes. Not because the system had won, but because the silence had finally lost. The story didn't end in that courtroom, because no courtroom could erase what was done. But it could do something else. It could break the illusion that fame and power were shields. It could warn the next girl before she walked through the wrong door. And maybe, just maybe, it could remind the world that secrets don't stay buried forever, even in the deepest basements.